Hello and welcome to the Ink Mages podcast. We're so glad you joined us because today is a special episode. We are celebrating the launch of Angela's new book, The Lost Son of Orcades. This is part one in her Iliads of Pridean's Heroes. I love this book. Congratulations, Angela.
Thank
It is
you.
it is beautiful. I got the hardback. Yes, your characters. I absolutely love your characters. Duin and Nimue are just absolutely special, and I love that you like wrote dual point of view. This I love a good romance, and I happen to be such a big fan of their how they meet and go on this journey together, and they're thrust into a lot of peril and have to work together and even a witch shows up and oh
Oh,
my
yes.
god, we're gonna talk about all these characters, but my goodness, if you love Arthurian legend and retellings, this has to be a must read for you. So Angela, kind of like dive in and tell us like how this story came about, because you wrote the trilogy, the Once and Future Chronicles, and I remember you telling me you wanted to kind of expand your universe and write about Arthur's like knights, the knights that form his band. So kind of tell us how that story evolved.
Well, I think one of my favorite things, because I got really nerdy before writing the Once Future Chronicles, and fell down the Arthurian legend hole. And it is way deeper than most people realize. So many of these stories, these Welsh old stories, so old, dating back to 500 AD before there was written histories. This was oral history. A lot of Arthurian legend was considered history. There was an Arthur-esque character. There were Merlin-esque characters, and really just wanting to bring a twist to Arthurian legend, all the different things that I'd heard. I mean, people, when they think of Arthurian legend, they think of the sword and the stone. And it's like
Yes.
way, way bigger than that. And there's so many more stories. And even the background stories of a lot of these characters that come in to support Arthur are just fantastic. Again, we get this idea of Merlin being this old mage, white beard, blue pointy hat. And the truth is, actually, in Arthurian legend, he is not that. Like, this is a more modern twist on Arthurian legend that most people are exposed to. And so I got really into the story, just seeing all of the different poems and stories, and you look at these heroes that have their own stories that fall into Arthurian legend, and I just really wanted to give my go at it and honestly bring in some of the historical nuances that most people don't know about Arthurian legend. But this particular story was about a knight that most people haven't really heard of. And again, my characters are not knights because we're set in an older time before
Right.
there were knights in shining armor. These are more rugged Celtic people. Um, but it really actually came to me. I think I said this on a past podcast. I was writing the Once and Future Chronicles. I actually think I was writing book 2. And I just had this idea pop into my head. I was thinking about King David and Jonathan's son Mephibosheth, who was a cripple, who David restored all of his lands and had him come sit in his table. And in that day and age, like, someone who was crippled was considered cursed.
Yeah.
And so this idea came to life of this other character that I knew of Arthurian legend, and how I could combine those stories. And there's some of Arthurian legend that talks about Morgan having birthed sons who
Oh.
become some of Arthur's mighty men. So even though
Ooh.
there's, sons that came from a witch, and then there's all these ties of King Lot, who would have been away from the Northland of Scotland, being associated with Morgan and these sons. And so I thought, wow, I could just really do a really fun, fantastic story, combining all of these things, putting them in the time frame and the world that I've already built. And I just had so much fun. It's sad because it's more of a suffering hero story, so it isn't a fun story, I would say. But the arc is so fun to tell, because you're taking
Right.
this poor boy who Prince was the son of a king, but also the son of a witch, and was brought up as a slave and a cripple
Oh,
and destitute, completely separated from who he was and where he came from, and his kind of arc of becoming a hero as a cripple, um, who really doesn't stand a chance in a world that really doesn't see quality in someone that isn't whole. And also, he's got what they call a witch's mark. So he's a birthmark in his hair that's white. And again, here in these older times where everything's a witch's mark, everything is a sign that, so
yes.
even if he wasn't crippled, there was already other things that were set against him and making him not worthy of anybody's attention. And just seeing him overcome this. And then you have Nimue, who comes in also, which again, another twist of Arthurian legend. You have Nimue, who has so many depictions in Arthurian legend. In some legends, she's this horrible witch that manipulates Merlin. In other
Oh
stories,
man.
she's a love interest of Merlin. In other
Oh my
stories,
gosh.
she's actually helps King Arthur, and she's this good guy. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something totally new for this character. And yet there's still an echo of some of the things that are from the original old stories.
I love that you say an echo because it's very clear for people who are a little at least a little familiar with the Arthurian stories that you can feel the nods, you can feel the echoes of the history when you open your book. And that's the case with every one of your stories, but this one is just so rich. And I love as soon as you're introduced to Duin, like even where he lives up far in the north, and it's the Picty land. So I'm not sure if like that was old terms for Scotland or not, because
Yes,
I'm not
yes, yeah.
as well read in this, but even when he's way up there, he's heard rumors and whispers of a new chieftain on the rise, this man named Arthur. And it's like, even at that moment when he doesn't think he's worthy of much because he's been, just abused his whole life, he has that little bit of hope of could he possibly be part of Arthur's like army. I don't know what term you would use back then, but
Yeah.
I just love that the call to destiny is like percolating at such a beginning moment too.
Yes. I want, because I believe, because there was this chieftain, and a lot of history points to this maybe being the Arthur that existed in this post-Roman civilization that did actually beat the Saxons off for a while. And there was this time of peace historically. And so you have to think, this, ravaged land that even the Romans have now left. They've abandoned. They've been left exposed, and you've got these Saxons just raiding villages, and there's no protection. You're the beginning of the Dark Ages right here, and because again, my fantasy has a lot of historical spin, and there is this beacon of hope. I feel like there probably was back then too, but that's what really I think drew some of these men of quality, and this is what made some of these stories timeless. Is you had these men who were willing to sacrifice their lives to serve this Arthur character, who had brought so much light and hope back to a land that had basically been just left to fend for themselves. And I love that. And my stories really are their own unique telling. So I'm not really retelling Arthurian stories.
No.
I am really weaving in echoes, little hints like,
Yeah.
this might have been the essence of the story that you've heard before, but really just telling my own, but bringing in characters. I would love to hear from one of my readers who figures out who this character is. If they've ever read any of the books about this particular knight and figures out who it is, because I love it when you get those people who do love Arthurian legend who pick up on the hints and the things that are in there. But and this is a standalone, so you don't have to have read any of my books to read this story.
That's right. And it is going to be a duology, which we will touch on that later. But yeah, love the spin you did with Nimue. I love that at least knowing the history and the different stories for her, it could inspire you a little bit to add in those echoes. But you're right. She is your own creation. And I love her like fiery aspects.
Yeah.
But she's also very vulnerable. So
Mhm.
it's a perfect, again, we were talking about this before we got on the podcast, but about duality with our
Yeah.
characters, that sometimes the thing that is their strength is also their weakness. And this is
Yes.
humans. Like we are walking contradictions often. And so Nimue can be like this stubborn, fiery. She even talks about the fact that like her red hair is like something that was it like the gods like
Yeah, had given her in
had
order
given her.
to give her strength in
Yeah.
hard times. Yes.
Yeah. So even with that, like there's superstition everywhere. So even pluses for superstition, like it gave her strength and courage, whereas like superstition for doing, like he's because of that little spot in his white hair, everybody thinks he's a witch's son and he's cursed. So yeah, she is a great like companion, but also like to help pull Doohan out of his kind of uh, defeatist
Yeah.
sense of I'm a cripple. So
Yeah.
even their banter is great. Like they get playful, but it's a little rocky in the beginning, as it probably should be. Like two strangers meeting for the first time. And they both
Yeah.
have their sense of abuses. Like it's not
Yeah.
going to be very smooth. And I love that you don't, pull punches with that stuff. You let it kind of get awkward or let it get a little hurtful.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted it to have that real sense of these two characters. One has never had any friends. You've got Dune who's literally been cursed by his own mother,
His
crippled by
only
his
friend
own
is a
mother.
horse, and his
His
only friend is
only
a horse.
yes, and he's meeting this girl who just won't shut up. And so he's like, I have no patience for you. I don't even have the capacity to talk as much as I'd like. It's totally an unfamiliar world for him. And coming from a place where he's never had the opportunity to trust anyone, where you have Nimue, who's very fiery, yet she came from a home where there was a lot of trust. She had a good father, she had a good mother, but they were killed by the Saxons. And her story really begins with kind of her village has been decimated. She has an uncle who's taken over who is just horrible.
Awful.
A terrible, it's almost like that post-apocalyptic idea of what can happen, when with the survivors when they don't decide to be good people. And that's
Right.
kind of where she is at the beginning of her story, very abused by her uncle. And she's having to escape that. But yet you've got this fiery young woman who's running to find home again. So she isn't going to have those triggers. She's going to be easier and quicker to trust. She's observant about doing so, even though she's really, she's instantly safety for her. So she fights for that. And she's, I feel like I've made her someone people can sympathize with and understand her journey, even when she makes mistakes, because of where she came from, because she hasn't had all of this experience being out in the world and being vulnerable. She's a fighter, but she's also never had to survive in this way. So she's looking for safety. She's looking for someone to take care of her. And she's a little too eager, I think, sometimes to find that in people who are not trustworthy. And that's where the rub begins, even with the new characters that come in, like the witch and Merlin.
Let us talk about the two powerhouses that are in the Lost Son of Orcades. So, the magic, the mage, and the witch.
I had to bring Merlin in. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to have Arthurian legend somewhere, you're going to have these characters emerge. You've got Morgan, who is the nemesis of Merlin and Arthur. And I honestly, when I first started reading or writing this book, I wasn't sure how I was going to pull them in and how they were going to be a part of the story. And for me, I think because Merlin is my muse, like he was the character of Merlin, especially when you get nerdy like I have in Arthurian legend. I mean, what an extraordinary character. I mean, there's so many things, and even to this day, you watch Harry Potter, and even in, Hogwarts world, they've got a portrait of Merlin on the wall because Merlin is this kind of idyllic wizard or mage that has spanned across this expanse of time. And even when you read the story of the real person that they say is Merlin, your mind just blows. You're like, this was an incredible story. And so to be able to pull him into the Once and Future Chronicles was so fun. But what was even more fun about this story is because it's a prequel, like it's back set in time, is I got to go back to a Merlin that was before, the what happens in the Once and Future Chronicles, kind of more druidic still. And so that was really fun. And I think he is kind of that wisdom, that base line of someone that balances a story really well, especially when everything else is in chaos. And the chaos definitely comes from Morgan. And I had fun writing her because I don't know what it is about having a kind of narcissistic manipulator at the reins as a villain, but she is really unstoppable. She sees every angle. And I think it really helps readers when they start diving into my book a little bit, just go, oh my gosh, how are these guys going to get away from her? Like, she really is formidable, and she has every angle covered. And really, her only kryptonite is Merlin. So you have two worlds that do collide in the book, and it makes for a fun story to write.
Yeah, and I love when you're adding those little extra history echoes. So it's anytime like Merlin starts telling a story, like, and that's so the first time he is talking to Duin about his encounter with Morgan, I'm like, I'm just leaning in. Like, they've had history, they've gone head to head before, and like he knows that this is a woman who's formidable. It's like they're playing a game of chess. They both have magic. They both can kind of sense the other person, but then Merlin also knows that, like, as a witch, she's got barriers, she's got like creatures, she's got things that can deceive. So he's not just like, well, I'm more powerful. There isn't that arrogance about him. He knows that he's dealing with somebody who you have to be wise and cautious. And I remember someone left a review for your book about Morgan as a devouring mother. And I had never heard that term before, but I'm like, that is perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about it. Like, she is this, she's so manipulative and like oily. Like, there's just something that almost like sticks to you, and you want to rub it away, but you can't. It's just like, so as soon as she's speaking, it's like it latches to you. And I remembered like sending you messages as I was reading like an early draft, like, she just terrifies me. I want them to get away from her, but you write her so well. Like,
some of the most dynamic scenes that people have read, they're like, oh my gosh, the scenes with Morgan. And I'm like, yes, she is.
She knows how to trap.
Yes,
she does.
Yes, she really does. She knows how to trap, and she knows what she's doing, and she's slippery. And it makes you, man, you go, oh my gosh, I wish these characters I love never encountered her, because you don't see the way out with her. But I loved writing her. And I think what makes Merlin and Morgan really fun to write, and it was even just creating that history in the Once and Future Chronicles, is I decided to really dive into who is Merlin, who is Morgan, where did they come from? Did they just have magic, or are they just people? And I love the idea of them being Atlanteans, which I don't use the word Atlantis or Atlanteans in our book, but these people that come from an older time, if you almost think of elves, these people or Numenorians in the
Lord of the Rings.
The Lord of the Rings, thank you. That they just live longer. They have a longer lifespan. They're still human, but there's echoes of this older race that have different strengths than humans do, different abilities. And so you've got these two characters who are fair folk, which is what I call them in my book. And so because Morgan, she's not just a woman, she's someone who's been around for a very long time. And so her ability to manipulate, her patience to connive, her ability to know how to entrap and ensnare is very clever. and very patient and very quiet and very subtle, and can be very powerful. Then you've got, someone like Merlin, and his bloodline is mixed with the fair folk. And now you even have the character Duin, whose mother is a witch. And his bloodline being mixed with the fair folk gives him some special perks as well, which
Yes.
I really loved bringing out in this story.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It just makes me want to read it again. And I love that the magic, like, it just feels so, it's rich, but it's tied to your story. So like some fantasy, the magic can just feel modern, but I
Mm,
love that yours feels old, and it feels
mm.
like it just fits right in with the old myths, and even like the Celtic creatures too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's even just talk. We'll talk about the Gwalgi.
Yeah. That's how it is. That's
Real,
how you say it.
well, real briefly, because I know that is like a real creature from Celtic myth, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be curious if like other druids could conjure this thing, or if it's just more of a dark, only with like evil wizards or evil witches would conjure this monstrosity.
Yeah. So again, my favorite thing is to pull from real history, real mythology, and one of my favorite things is writing Celtic monsters, and they're in all of my stories. All of whether they're modern day Shadows of the Forgotten Shores, more of a modern day story, but still the Celtic monsters thrive in that story as well. And the Gwalgi is one of my favorites. I think because it is a wolf-like hound, dark, shadowy hound type creature. And wolves are just, I don't know, there's something about them that's kind of cool. They're kind of a cool
They're cool
monster.
and scary.
Yeah, cool and scary. And so I really liked this one. In Celtic myth, there isn't a ton about the Gwalgi. It's more of a haunt. It's a wolf that once it sees you, it's declaring your death. If you've seen it, you're
doomed.
probably about to be unalived. Yeah. And that's really all. It's kind of this ominous idea. And I, again, wanted to make my own twist. I'm like, what was the Gwalgi? It's spectral, it's supernatural, it's not a physical monster necessarily, it's more of a demonic monster. And it was my own creation to have it not just be a wolf, but kind of this branchy, skeletal, sulfuric vapor, that's all twisted together to create this sharp, jagged creature that manifests in the forests. And the way I do have the Gwalgi in the Once a Future Chronicles, and then bringing it back in the Lost Son of Orcades was really fun for me, is that they are conjured by dark magic. So it is kind of like a demonic essence that's owned by, as much as dark magic can own anything, but is kind of owned by these conjurers or these witches, druids, that are willing to sacrifice enough blood to.
That's right.
Whether it's other people's blood, their own blood, the death that creates them, and allows them to kind of have rulership over them or release them into the world. I think in the Once a Future Chronicles, I like to expose how much these conjurers or these druids don't have control over these demonic creatures.
They like to think they do.
As much as they think they do. But in this story, it is something that Morgan has guarding her forest. And it is a scary, formidable creature, especially because it's not a monster you can just slay. It is a spectral spirit.
Right. If it's vaporous swords, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? How are you going to, and so I had to even kind of figure out as I'm developing my creature, like, what are its vulnerabilities? What makes it go away? How can you kill it? Can you kill it? Can you dispel it? So that's just really, really fun for me to write. And I think I loved the fact that it was kind of a beautiful monster with twisting branches and sharp teeth, and loved being able to have that come to life and illustrated and, see what that looks like.
Oh yeah. I feel like if you're watching on YouTube, there it is.
There it is. Yeah.
Yes.
All the Celtic knots inside.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, dude, I wouldn't want to come across that thing. All
I like
right.
having my scary monsters to kind of balance out. You know, there's that redemptive message that's always coming, but
Yes.
I don't want my readers to trust me. So
Hey, we gotta put the hero through some like hardships, and they I feel like every hero has to slay its dragon or slay its
yes.
monster. So yeah, this book is just so good, and the action scenes are so exciting. You're reading on the edge of your seat. So tell everyone, where can they get your book, because it is out now.
You
It's
can go to
out.
Barnes and Noble. You can go to Amazon and purchase a copy of my book. It's in paperback, ebook, and hardback. Definitely recommend a hardback if you like to have a beautiful book for your library, because it does have a very cool interior cover that is exclusive to the hardback. So if that's something that you like, you definitely want to pick up a copy, a hardback copy. So still waiting for mine. Can't wait for it to come in. But yes, love the support and love that this story is out in the world. It was so fun for me to write. There was a lot of my own emotions that went into writing this. And then part 2, I'm now invested in writing that one. Very excited for that one to come into the world. If you love giants, again, the whole, idea of history behind giants and all of that kind of stuff in the land of the old world of the UK. It's just fun to bring to life.
It's fantastic. I've been able to read the first 100 pages, and oh, it was so fun and terrifying. Not
Yeah.
going to give spoilers, but oh my gosh, you have got me gripped.
Again, I like my monsters, right? I
Yes.
like to really write those well, and I have fun with them. But yeah, so please support me. I love for you to pick up a copy of my book. I'd love if you read it, for you to leave a review or just to reach out to me and let me know what you loved about it. I think every author just wants to know, have you read my book? Did you love it? What was your favorite thing? What jumped off the page for you? So thanks for joining the Ink Mages. Thank you for supporting us, and we love your comments. We love it when we get to interact with all of our listeners. So leave us a like, leave us a comment, and we will see you next time.